He's going to be defensive end. He's going to start this out. Will Smith had he had a pretty great career out there in New Orleans, and God, please rest in peace by him. He died only at 34 years old. I don't exactly know why. I think it was a car crash, but it's upsetting. Of course, he played from the age of 23 to the age of 31. He had over 400 tackles. He had 67 and a half sacks career wise, multiple forced fumble recoveries, multiple pass deflections, like multiple of multiples, and just he did it, man. He was fantastic overall, and I mean, I'm telling you, he was for him playing there, being one Pro Bowler, being a part of that team that won the Super Bowl. He was just a key piece to everything, and he did retire after 2012, and fortunately he passed away 4 years after he retired. But a guy that was phenomenal, and not a star, but I think he's going to be an impactful player for this team. All right, now we're going to look at this D tackle, nose tackle. We're doing a 3-4. I'm just letting you know right now. The linebackers are a lot more. They have the capability of being more stars than their D line. Jim Wilkes, though, D tackle, phenomenal guy, big dude. Recorded 45 and a half sacks from the 80s and 90s. No tackles at all, but I'm guarantee it was hundreds of tackles that he had. Just a very impactful dude. It's unfortunate he had no Pro Bowls. I definitely think this guy deserved to have some Pro Bowls, to be honest with you, to be a nose tackle. So, yeah, overall, though, Jim Wilkes, I think, is going to be a phenomenal addition to this line. And him and Will Smith, I think, I think it's going to work out pretty well. Last but not least, well, we're going to have Wayne Martin, the D end. Also was a D tackle for the Saints back in the 80s and 90s. A guy that accumulated about 600 tackles, over 80 plus sacks, had a bunch, just a bunch of forced fumbles and fumble. Like overall, fantastic human being. Overall, just fantastic guy. That Pro Bowl there, so definitely a fearsome dude. So you don't want to get with him. This is a guy that can have like double digit sacks in a year. So he knows how to manage and how to be that guy. It's kind of unfortunate, and also it's kind of a shame. One Pro Bowl for a guy that at one point had 15 and a half sacks. That year didn't even get to the Pro Bowl. In my opinion, that's a shame. That's stupid. So I think I think this is gonna be a pretty good D line though, for real. All right, we start with the linebackers, the most exciting portion I think for this defense, and we start with Hall of Famer Ricky Jackson, six-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers when they got him in 94, played 94, 95 the last 2 years, but 13 years, his first 13 years in New Orleans, huge defender, a guy that recorded 128 career sacks with over 1,000 tackles, and a guy that has multiple of a lot of things, played in over 200 games, was just, was even part of the All 1980s team. A guy that was very valuable, and at times, like, people thought of him as, yeah, this guy, he can dominate. He was really, in the 80s and 90s, he was a guy that was looked at as, well, I mean, he is kind of a LT-esque kind of player. Honestly, he was one of those guys that was top 5, top 3 linebackers, outside linebackers in that era. So, yeah, Ricky Jackson, great start to this. All right, now the other inside linebacker. How about the first one? Sorry, the first one. The other linebacker, the second one, but the inside linebacker, Sam Mills. This is a part of the squad of linebackers in the 80s, 90s that just killed it, right? And I'm letting you know, spoiler alert, they're all from that crew. So yeah, but anyway, Sam Mills, a 5-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All Pro, a guy that really did a lot. He had over 1,000 plus tackles. He had 20 and a half sacks. He was able to have multiple fumble recoveries, multiple forced fumbles, able to have multiple interceptions, and a guy that's played, for a while, out there in New Orleans for 9 years and Carolina for 3 years. This is a guy that honestly, like, you put it down and you're like, wow, this is actually low key a guy that was a superstar, because he is. He was legitimately a pretty great inside linebacker at this time. So just very underappreciated. I do believe he should be a Hall of Famer, in my honest opinion, because I think all these linebackers were surefire, just competitors and just fantastic. It's kind of a shame that the Saints weren't recognized as much there, but they were someone else with that linebacking crew. All right, the other inside linebacker. How about Vaughn Johnson? Vaughn Johnson, big dude, inside linebacker, right with Sam Mills. I think it's going to be a fantastic thing that they got going on. He's a four-time Pro Bowler. Played with the Eagles for his last, his last career season as a player. But he played all 8 out of 9 in New Orleans, so very big, very disruptive. And, he had some pretty great years, I'm telling you. Was a guy that had almost 700 career tackles. It's a guy that's played in over 100 games, so he's had the experience. He's made 4 Pro Bowls, The numbers don't line up. It's kind of unfortunate that they don't line up. He just didn't have as much of, the unbelievable eye-popping numbers like Ricky Jackson and Sam Mills had. But Vaughn Johnson, I think he's going to be the X factor to this defense because 3 out of the 4 will be, a lot of people will be paying attention to them, and Vaughn Johnson's going to have multiple opportunities to have multiple double-digit tackles and possibility of having a sack a game. All right, closing out the linebacker, Pat Swilling, fantastic linebacker, a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, played in New Orleans for 7 years, played in Oakland for 3, and played in Detroit for 2. Should be Hall of Famer. Sorry, the fact that he's not is kind of upsetting to me. Having 107.5 sacks, that should equate to something. Sorry, 500 career tackles, multiple fumble recoveries, multiple forced fumbles, 36 of them, even having 6 picks. He played in enough games. He's got to have, in my opinion, he has to have a shot at least to make it to what he wants, and that's the Hall of Fame. Because if you're looking at it, he won the 1991 NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He should, in my opinion, should be up for a nomination for a Hall of Fame. I think he has the numbers to kind of go with it, and the fact that he has that Defensive Player of the Year, it's almost like, you got to take into consideration people that have literally been the best. Even if that was for 91, right? He won the 91 Defensive Player of the Year. He had a pretty good, solid career overall. So I think having him more involved and getting him into that field, I would love to see this guy being a Hall of Famer. Definitely, there's a few there, what I see here from the New Orleans organization that don't get enough credit, and that's upsetting. All right, now we go with the first corner, and that's going to be Dave Waymer, a 1-time Pro Bowler, a man that's had 48 career picks. So, again, another under-the-radar kind of guy that can do very great things for your club. So I think Dave Waymer, he's not too big of a corner, but he's not too small of a corner. I think he'll work out super well, and I do believe in him, and I think he's going to do some great things out there in the secondary. All right, the other corner, Johnny Poe. Johnny Poe is a guy that played from the age of 22 to the age of 28. Just very, like I said, low career, right? But a guy that in 100 games, 17 career picks, 2 of them for touchdowns, even had a sack in there. So I think, having him in there is very important. He's had value while being a Saint. Definitely one of the higher guys that has higher value in there out of the organization. So I do expect him to be on this list. Also, corners-wise, it's very hard to see fantastic corners out of New Orleans in their entire history. So it's still, you never know in the future. They can have fantastic, fantastic lists, because as of right now, that young defense out there in New Orleans is not bad. All right, now free safety, we're gonna have Tom Myers. Tom Myers, he was a Pro Bowler. He's a guy that has 36 career picks. A guy that's had multiple fumble recoveries, multiple fumbles. This is a man that really, I think, just like this entire defense, they're under the radar. They don't get taken seriously enough, and I think this is where they shine. And I think Tom Myers will shine. He's definitely the weakest one out of the entire secondary. So, but I think Waymer And the strong safety that you'll see, those will be the leaders, though, for the secondary. And that leader is strong safety Roman Harper, a guy that's a two-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion. He's pretty sure, I'm not sure, but I believe he is done with his career. But I am not too sure right now. All I know is this is a man that was, you know, when he played, pretty great out there in Carolina and in New Orleans. Like he was pretty great. A guy that's had about 700 plus tackles. A guy that's had 18 career sacks, 11 picks. But mostly it's because of his ability of being smart and causing chaos and hitting. And so yeah, I think he will be a fantastic leader. And he's going to be your prototypical strong safety in the box. So I think it will be pretty nice to see the secondary. All right, now special teams is also a very big deal. Morten Andersen, Hall of Famer, this past year 7-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. This is one of the few guys that I put on my list, I'm pretty sure, in Atlanta. Well, he's going to be also on this New Orleans list. He's been in New Orleans more. Just a guy that he's had 500 plus field goal makes, a 79.7 field goal percentage, but when you play for about like 27 years or so, it's something, right? But he was able to have a 98.8 extra point percentage. A guy that was able to play for so long till the age of 47, like wow, So yeah, no, having him there, gonna be great. I don't think they'll let him down. I don't think he'll let New Orleans down. He won't even he won't let Atlanta down either. He's going to be a great kicker. That's all I know. Hall of Fame kicker, that's what you need. You need great players, so he's a great player. All right, last but not least, how about Thomas Morstead? Thomas Morstead, the punter, a Pro Bowler, and a Super Bowl champion. A guy that's had about 500 plus punts, over 20,000 yards. And just an individual that's played there pretty much the longest out of all the punters out there in New Orleans. He's been there from 2009. He's still there. So yeah, I think he's going to be reliable. He's a reliable guy. He's the most reliable guy that they have out there in the history of their organizational position in terms of punter wise. So now he'll do fine. He'll do good things. All right, returner Darren Sproles, a little guy that can just speed and just power when he needs it. He will definitely be very powerful. Just overall, just a fantastic dude that's been able to be a pretty good running back, be a pretty good receiver actually as well, but also the ability of the returner. That's why he's there. A guy that's for punt returns looking over 2,000 plus for punt return yards, 7 of them for touchdowns, and then kick returns having over 8,000 kick return yards as well as 2 touchdowns. Yeah, this is a guy that is going to kill you with running the football, when they need to pass it, as well as returning wise. He's going to be a big threat. So 3-time Pro Bowler. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think he will make a very big contribution to this team. All right, and last but not least, Sean Payton will be the head coach. It's literally the easiest idea I could have thought up. Sean Payton has to be the coach. He really, really does. And that's because he's the only one that's really made New Orleans super relevant, is him, ever since he walked there in 2006, what he's been able to do. He's had some tough years, but this is a guy that really hasn't had terrible years. Like, there's some guys that have had 2-14, 1-15, 0-16, Like, they've, the coach-wise are just like, damn, I can't get these guys. But even with the worst, just one of the worst defenses before, and didn't have a running game at all, right? Before all that, and it was just Drew Brees carrying that team, right? They were able to be at worst, he's had this team at 7-9. I mean, that in itself needs to have some sort of value. The other thing is he's had a 59.7 win percentage in the regular season and a 63.6% playoff percentage winning, right? So in 11 playoff games, he's 7-4. His average rank of getting them to the playoffs, or average divisional rank, 2.1, and he won a Super Bowl, right? That's a big thing, is that he won a Super Bowl, and no one in New Orleans was able to win a Super Bowl. No coach, right? again, they have one, and that one is, players and organization, staff, everything, but also Sean Payton. He's the coach. He's the one that managed it. He's the one that needs to get the credit.